how's the guitar playing, Gans?
Oh my god, why would you start with that? I haven't played guitar in a fucking year. I'm a monster.
Yeah,
it's
did you learn any heavy metal? Did you learn any Metallica?
No, you know who you should blame for that? Cody Johnston.
Not you, the person who's
and be like, Cody, why didn't you teach Adam heavy metal? Because Cody is my instructor. Did you know that? Did you know he was my instructor?
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
Actually, it warms my heart that he wants to teach me
He's
guitar.
a very good guitarist.
Oh, yeah, and he loves it so much. And so, like, I'll go over to his place and we'll, like, fuck around on the guitar.
Fucking noodle. Yeah.
For an hour, 2 hours. You know what I mean?
I've noodled so many hours with Cody.
And he's explaining pentatonic scales to me, and I'm like, bro,
he loves his fucking modes.
Just tell me a score. Just give me a single hand gesture. Could I have that?
Point me to the Blink 182 song I can use.
Listen, I'm gonna hum one for you. It's all right. You know that one?
It's all right.
Tell me.
Playing. Yeah. So
all right.
The reason I mention it is this is CU Space Pod Boys.
We're already
the
in
Cowboy
orbit.
Bebop podcast.
You took this one to orbit immediately.
And we're talking heavy metal queen, baby.
Here we are, episode 7.
This is number 7.
Can you believe it?
Yeah. You were going chronologically, so if you're on number 7, here you are.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Play that one, then listen to this.
So here's what we do on this podcast.
Yeah.
We go through the episode kind of quick. And then we talk about execution, because we both have a directorial background, we talk, or maybe editing or whatever.
Sure.
We talk about execution because that's one of the best parts of bebop, being space jazz. And then finally we talk about themes.
Yeah,
because we love that shit, symbolism, and what does that all mean?
Yeah.
Why is it significant?
And you know what you should do, audience? You should, if you like this podcast, go ahead and give it a rate or review on Apple. That would really help us, because getting the word out for Small Beans, so we can continue to put more beans in your pot, metaphorically speaking.
I've already gone on the interwebs, and I started to see some references to our show.
Oh.
Because people talk about, like, I'm looking for a bebop podcast.
Oh.
There's a few of them, and they're very good. I've listened to
that's sweet.
Maybe an hour. But some people are like, these guys, they might have something. They might have something here.
They're
might
young. Be weebs. They're young. No, they're not. What's young anymore?
They're supple. They're impressively taut. All right. Screw this.
Great.
Let's get into the episode. In our first segment, the synopsis one, we call it, What Planet Is This? Let's go through Heavy Metal Queen. I'm the quarterback for your episode. I'm Abe Epperson.
I'm Adam Ganser. I'm your running back, I guess, in this metaphor.
Yeah. And so an interstellar trucker known as VT basically is offloading her shipment. It's a pretty cool montage where it's kind of like 2001, where it's just like docking and docking and docking. And she's met by another trucker named Otto, who's like, there's this folklore about VT. Everyone knows her as VT, and she's a kind of famous trucker and well respected. No one knows her real name, and she's got this wad of cash that if you pay like $1 or X number of wulong, you guess their name. Usually it's a V and a T, which turns out to be true. He gets it wrong, and the wad of cash gets more enormous.
It looks like maybe 500 people have tried this.
Yeah, no, it's huge.
It's so much money.
And she's just like, this. People started doing it. I don't know. She goes to this trucker diner, and she has a cat named Zeros.
Love the cat.
Love the cat.
Every animal in Cowboy Bebop is just a little smarter than an animal would be, but in a fun way. I love
also that's this sequence where we kind of introduced that she has a cat, and the cat is like going through zero G, like comfortably, like paddling on, like
floating
in
by
the water, just having a good time. Totally catches on to another thing, totally easy. She talks to a guy who's upside down. Like, you get such a sense in this within just the first 2 minutes that the deeper world building, it's just there. they're so good at zero G stuff because they live out there. There's no point in pointing it out.
It's just a fact about them that's part of how their life goes. Also, though you didn't say it, I got a comment. Space trucks look awesome in the show.
Oh yeah, they do.
I love it. The weird triangular
pyramid.
They're so cool.
Prisms, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bartender tells VT that, hey, there's bounty hunters in the bar today because there's a guy named Decker who is supposed to arrive, and he did some crazy shit. He's got nitroglycerin, basically. We don't know the details, but basically
liquid bomb is what he's got.
Liquid bombs on board.
There are 1,000 bounty hunters in this bar. There are so many bounty hunters.
There's so many of different types. It's hilarious.
It really is.
And none of them are like our guys, who is in the bathroom, hungover as hell. Spike is like, I don't think Faye's lead is gonna work out. I am hammered or I'm hungover. I don't think I'm gonna get it either. This is a bullshit tip. We're not gonna get we're not gonna get it. And he orders a prairie oyster at the bar, which is a horrible concoction of spices and egg, and
it was eggs, and then it was
something.
Like I think it had like cayenne pepper in it.
Yeah.
It looked like nightmares. Like you would never want that in your body.
Right.
Meanwhile,
a waitress is being harassed by some bounty hunters, and VT steps up and is like, what the fuck are you doing? I hate bounty hunters, first off. Yeah. And you guys are acting like pieces of shit, so I'm going to beat the hell out of you. Kick you out of the diner. Meanwhile, during the scuffle, as Spike is preparing his egg yolk, by, catching it between the two different shells.
He's de-yolking it, by the way. That's right?
Yeah.
So he gets just yolk.
It falls on his lap, and that, the only thing he needed was this hangover cure, and he doesn't get it, so now he's in the fight, because that's how Spike rolls.
He looks like shit, by the way.
They do a lot of work.
Yeah. It's really good.
So they beat the shit out of him. It's pretty awesome, and VT's like, good job. Let me offer you a drink. You're a good guy. Bounty hunters are scum in particular. And Spike's just like, okay.
Yeah,
he does not fight her on that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Faye is basically staking out a nearby children's themed restaurant.
Yeah, that was
Woody's.
Fucking weird. What's the deal with that?
I love that because that means that we know something strange about Decker, and there's plenty of references in that. Like it's like a Mickey and Minnie, like Disney thing. It's like a children's themed, but it's like, what are these truckers doing? And there's multiple truckers there, which is strange. In any case, she's looking for a guy with a dragon tattoo, sees the dude who's huge, who has a shirt kind of revealed that looks like a dragon. Turns out it's going to be an eel later, and he's just got a thing for eels.
It's the cutest eel.
Eel, but so she gets it wrong, which is a thing that happens a lot, especially to Faye. And she's like, she detains him, but ultimately she's like, tells the real Decker, who's just in the other booth, hey man, go tell him I found Decker, like the police, and I'm coming in. And he's like, oh, thank God. So he bails, right? Yeah. And then that's when she notices that he has a actual dragon tattoo, and the guy she's got is actually Neil. So she chases him in her ship, the Red Tail, and he has these little explosive mechanisms, these tiny little things that he puts essentially in a deposit slot in his cockpit that just drops nitroglycerin, assumably.
It's like a torpedo slot,
yeah,
or like a depth
it's a little
charge
vial that spins and then lands on you like a grenade, and it absolutely fucks up her zip craft.
Her ride gets fucked up. Also, can we talk briefly about the scene with Jet and Ein?
Oh yeah,
so,
he's eating.
Back in the Bebop, Jet, just mother hen over here, taking care of Ein, feeds Ein these bean sprouts. And he's like justifying it to Ein, and they have the funniest cut I think I've ever seen. Back to Abe saying nothing in response to the bean sprouts. And like the most judgmental dog look you've ever seen.
Fucking
really good.
Ein kills it.
Ein
in this episode also, he's not good at zero G.
At
one point he's just like paddling and just sucks at it. So he's the cutest as all hell. All get up. In any case, more people guess about VT's identity. She keeps winning. And she finds out that basically she overhears that Spike is a bounty hunter, and she's like, oh, you're a piece of shit too. And he realizes that the crowd that they beat up in the first scene has like graffitied and, you know, sullied the swordfish to his zip craft. And so that means Spike has to like hitchhike now because it's inoperable. And that's when Zeros, the cat, jumps on his head, which signals to VT, all right, if my cat likes this guy, maybe he isn't too bad. So she gives him a ride.
Also, the waitress really likes Spike. It's very clear everybody but VT likes Spike.
Senses,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
No, she's got a hang up, and we're going to talk about that later for sure.
Yeah.
He talks to her and he's like, also, I have this friend Faye. Can you pick her up too? Because, you know, we're derelict and you seem like you'll help us out. And they hate her music, etc. It's a cute little thing. Eye catch. And then we get, VT gets a call from another trucker that some crazy driver, seemingly in an attempt to escape for his life or something, he's just panicked, has been crashing into people's rigs, including his. And she's like, okay, I'm tracking a guy down. It sounds like that's the guy. And he's like, I'll help you out. And we get this whole like kind of Twilight bark, so to speak.
Yes, all the
truckers.
Space truckers.
Saying like, oh, I saw a guy. And it's oh, that doesn't sound like it. Oh, I saw a guy. Okay, that sounds like a lead. You know, and it's like back and forth. And it's wonderful because we see inside their cockpits and they each have a very unique thing going.
But most of it is Space Playboy. Can we be honest? Like, it's a lot of Space Playboy. You know, like tons of that.
It's that trucker thing. It's actually taken from a very specific reference, which is Sam Peckinpah's film Convoy from I think late 70s.
That's fun.
And it's like that has sequences where it's just like people Breaker 19 and they're all having like chats over, you know, just the CB radio is just a lively chat room, so to speak.
That's a trucker trope. Right? Like they're on CB radio.
And it kind of started there. And Watanabe has said very clearly it's because of that film.
Oh, that's fun. Briefly, what's the closest band approximate you can make to the music she's listening to?
Yeah,
like what band are they like in your mind?
I don't know because I'm not a huge hard rock guy, to be honest. I think of it as like, this is just great seatbelt song. Yeah. It's unique and I love it. And I like it more than a lot of hard rock.
It's very, heavy metal's like an imitation. Not maybe the best thing to describe it as. Because it's a lot of soloing and then a guy that sounds like he's in Rush, maybe.
You know what I mean? Yeah, there's a little bit of Rush in there. Yeah. It's pretty dramatic.
Yeah. It's not as theatrical as Rush, but anyway.
Yeah, so she gets a bunch of responses from, and I love this because I got this from the Wikipedia. They have names. Each of these guys have names.
Perfect.
All right, I'm going to list them for you.
I'm so excited. You're gonna love them. Thank you.
Love Machine.
Yeah, great.
Sneaky Snake.
Sneaky Snake.
Spider Mike.
That's the best one so far.
Yeah, those are great.
Spider Mike.
Yeah, and so in any case, she's like, okay, well, since he's kind of a good guy and I've gotten to know him a little bit better, I kind of have a lead and it'd be good to have help knowing what I know now about his dangerous haul. She contacts Spike. Mm-hmm. She was like, he actually got that contact, which is crazy because Spike usually doesn't know anyone other than people from his past life. He's not, in any case. He's like, well, be careful. The explosives are apparently worse than we thought. And the call gets disconnected. Spike and Faye rush out of the Bebop in their kind of semi-repaired craft.
Yeah,
Jet is enough. Like, yeah, she's like, most of this shit's broken. He's like, oh, fucking wish your mouth was broken. Like, he's pissed because he did all this work. And they're like, come on, Jet, be the mechanic guy, which is faster. A lovely little dynamic.
Yeah.
So as they kind of arrive, Decker just starts dropping explosives, and they're in a tunnel that's inside like one of the asteroids that has been a mining kind of derelict mining sphere, you know, and basically it's unstable, and they know this. So the fact that he's doing this is ridiculous, and the whole thing might blow up. It's a powder keg, which is a reference to something else I'll talk about a little later, which is the Italian-French film Wages of Fear. Have you seen that?
I have
50s? Not. Yeah, it's exactly what this story is. In any case, he's doing his chain reaction after chain reaction. And it's pretty clear, he just bombed himself to death. But VT is still alive, even though her ship is screwed. And we get one of the coolest sequences in the freaking thing, right? Which is the Spike is like, okay, we need to blow a hole in this asteroid, probably with his nitroglycerin, because we need it out because the tunnel has collapsed upon us.
Yep.
So what's your plan, Spike? Well, Faye, use your little clampers on your ship, grab one of the bombs, put it in my Zipcraft's pod, which I'm going to eject right now. Then I'm going to float out into space. I'm going to breathe in and put, I don't know, earpods in for some.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Earplugs.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. I don't know what the science is here. I don't think it's this.
I think it isn't. Yeah.
I think it isn't. Yeah. But he ejects. She puts the bomb in the pod. He's programmed it to launch down the tunnel. And they have one of the coolest sequences where Heavy Metal Queen is like, oh, I got to open the door. He wants me to save him because he's going to die. Mm-hmm. And they're all freaked out. Mm-hmm. And she tries to get him, but in the last second, something moves and the momentum that he had is no longer useful. So he starts drifting away. And Spike does the coolest thing.
Yes, he does. It was very cool.
Which is he uses his gun as a form of propellant, and then he lands on the side, lands on the bottom of his pod. The tunnel, and kicks himself back up to her arms, and he's saved.
Well, he lands on the pod, which enables Faye to get the canister in there. Spike's accident fixes the whole thing.
Yeah, he helps.
Of course. He helped. Yeah.
Which is, we're going to talk about, especially in the next episode. That's just what he does, dude.
That's the Spiker.
Yeah. Yeah. So, after all that, they get out, and, they now are on autopilot. They didn't get any of the money.
Right. Perfect.
And as they're leaving the collapsing mine, Spike is like, oh, by the way, one last detail is during this whole kerfuffle, her locket fell off and he caught it.
Yeah.
And presumably he looked at it and he immediately recognized a younger VT with Zeros, the cat, and in the locket, the picture of her husband, who is named Ural Terpsichore, who is a famous bounty hunter, legendary. And that makes her Victoria, because he knows this, just because I assume bounty hunter lore.
He's that famous.
And also it shows that he has a little bit of respect for where he came from. He knows bounty hunters, I wouldn't say that all bounty hunters have this kind of knowledge, because that's immediately something that Victoria is like, my name? And she's like, all right, well, here's the stack of money. And he takes only $1 and he's like, hey, as a reference to a previous scene, her husband drank prairie oyster drinks as well, and he's like, he's probably hungover in heaven, so you save the money. I'll just take this single Wulong or whatever it is.
Classy.
And that's basically the end. He's an honorable thief.
That was classy.
Changes her mind a little bit, only taking one bill, and even though no one really got money from the bounty, it's Bebop, baby. That's the end of the episode.
They won't die. They'll just find some eel parts or whatever, bean sprouts to eat or whatever.
Bean sprouts, yeah. They'll somehow eat something. Eat something. I imagine there's got to be more episodes where it's just the things they eat. I mean, there's the attic episode where it's they left something in the fridge that it actually congeals and forms a monster.
Yeah, it's in a couple episodes.
In any case, that is the end of the run through. Let's kind of talk a little bit more about the execution. And I want to turn to Adam, since I've been talking so much. You take the first segment and our next overall segment, Pushing the Sky.
Oh, yes. I love that music. And that brings me right to the spot I want to be in, Abo, which is cockpit shots. Abe, I want to talk about cockpit shots. Okay? Now, look, cockpit shots, there's not a lot you could do with it. Okay? That's a fact about most movies, right? And most cockpit shots in movies are one camera mounted in one spot, right? And that's all they really can be. because you don't have the time and money to get nuanced. That's why, for instance, when you watch Star Wars, everybody's in the same frame in Star Wars. Like the only thing that changes, like in the trench run, the trench run, the only thing that really changes about the cockpit in all those shots is the lighting a bit, and to a degree the design of the dashboard, but not much. Otherwise, a cockpit shot is kind of a cockpit shot. Top Gun Maverick had a slightly wider angle camera on its cockpit shots, which made them feel more epic, and that was pretty rad. But they're kind of all the same. And they're
mostly center punched, looking right down the barrel at a pilot. That
is one of the things I love about Cowboy Bebop, that they were like, we can get more out of these cockpit shots. Because this episode is mostly done in cockpits. You know what I mean? And one like very basic mechanic that they put into work that's used in film all the time, but they do it to really great effect here, is camera height. Okay, camera height is a very basic thing that we all ingest as a power dynamic. And what I mean by that is this. When you see a small child and you look down at that child, right? And let's assume you're an adult and not a monster, your reaction to that child is, oh, look at that, right? You immediately have a sense of compassion for that smaller child, right? Or when you were a kid looking up at your parents for, until you were a teenager probably, there was a big sense of these people are much more powerful than me because you had to look up at them, right? This basic dynamic of looking up at somebody, looking down at somebody, and how it creates a perception is used all the time in this episode to indicate what the stakes are of the moment. Okay, so like a lot of times when a bad twist or turn happens in the narrative and they're in a cockpit, suddenly we'll be looking down at Faye or down at Spike. And I mean way over their eye line because they're up Schitt's Creek now. Right? And it's the kind of thing, it can't exist in real life, but because it's animated, like it's anime, we don't care, right? And it's one of those very basic techniques a director uses, but because it's being in play here, it keeps what is otherwise a fairly static episode interesting. Like it's a way to keep the angles interesting. And that, it takes a veteran filmic director to think of that. So that's the first observation I wanted to make. Another one is that they often will do lighting changes to tell you how intense the characters are feeling or not. And those lighting changes are not necessarily motivated by what's in the frame or even motivated by what's outside the frame. Like,
like an explosion or something.
Like
they do that, but they also do non-diegetic stuff.
And again, because it's anime, we kind of expect some of this, but like they go full on like noir cartoon at times with some of the lighting in these cockpits to get more action out of them than would exist in, say, a normal, film. And I think that's kind of interesting. I also just wanted to comment that the one time that Spike's plan is really unclear, like what is it you're going to do, man, is the moment where before he leaps out of his cockpit, which is very shocking, right? The way we see him through that the colored lens of the glass of his cockpit, which obscures a sense of what does he mean right now? What is he up to? Like, so the director actually found a way to keep us out of his point of view, but still see him. Right. Which is, we really don't see that many other times in Cowboy Bebop. It's one of the only times we do that, and like, you don't think about, oh yeah, I guess this is a tinted window, but this is the only time that the director really makes you look at that. Last thing, and this is another perspective thing, which is why I'm including it in this like little bundle on perspective. Every time the bet is being done, not every time. The beginning and the end of the film or the show, when the bet is being done, we have people on opposite ends of verticality, right? So we meet Otto, he's upside down, and that's how he initiates this conversation with VT to do the bet, right? And he comes down for the bet, but I think the idea here is they're not really on the same ground intellectually, like they don't understand each other. And at the end of the show, when Spike sees more clearly who she is than she did, when he's ahead of her, she's the one that's upside down, and he's the one that's right side up, right? And so you have this visual picture of who really understands the way the world works better. When it's Otto, that person is VT, but when it's Spike, It's Spike, baby.
Yeah.
Anyway, some really cool.
And there's like a specific reason for that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love
it too.
I want to talk about that more in theme though.
Great.
Because that's kind of involved in the stuff I have to say there. But for this one, for execution, great observation, by the way. And if you want to look for more cool stuff like that, like honestly, Watanabe isn't the only thing in place in town. There's another anime it's a movie. It's called Red Line, and it's about racers on Mars. I think it came out like 2008, 2009, late 2000s, and it does a lot of that type of stuff, like dramatic kind of cockpit shooting to make it more efficient. Weeb shit, yeah. So the one I want to talk about is how to steal with class.
Love it.
And it kind of ties into this thing that we talk about, this effortless world building that Watanabe and company do. So obviously, just to get a few references out of the way of things that are being quote unquote stolen or just being pulled as kind of references, things on walls and stuff like that. A lot of the episode is taken from the Deep Purple song "Space Truckin'." If you listen to that song, listen to the lyrics.
So that's the actual band. Is Deep Purple?
Yeah,
okay,
you're probably right. I haven't listened to Deep Purple that much. So, Terpsichore, which is a name that comes from the Muses, is the muse of dancing, which gives a kind of lighter, kind of tone to Victoria or VT, because she's this hardened, like everyone respects her because she's hard as hell. She's the heavy metal queen. VT has like a Satyricon poster, which is fucking fantastic because that's also like she's in Satyricon. She has like the satyr up there. Also reveals kind of like more of a seedy past. Like she's not everything you're expected. There's a good and bad and ugly quote in the bar. One of the bounty hunters is like, "I'm tired of you, Blondie," which is a literal thing that's said to Clint Eastwood in that movie. In the Faye Diner with Decker, I mentioned it's like Mickey and Minnie kind of mouse analogs. They're called Mackie and Manny.
Yeah, it's so silly.
Which I just love. Yeah. But more importantly, I want to talk about, I referenced this movie, The Wages of Fear. The whole idea for the whole thing. If you watch Wages of Fear, it's one of the best known. It's a black and white film. It's like a French film. It's about these guys, these truckers essentially, who are paid by an oil company that's currently having like one of their oil rigs is completely on fire, and they're driving a truck in the South American like essentially terrain, like this mountain. They have to drive nitroglycerin, which is what they use to like end oil fires. They use more fire and they use bigger fire, and so it's this tentative kind of thing, and that kind of gave them the idea for the episode.
The movie Convoy?
This is Wages of Fear.
Oh, man, because there's a movie called Sorcerer that's very similar to that.
That Sorcerer took that from Wages of Fear.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah.
There's, in fact, the bridge falling down? Fred King, like, that's in Wages of Fear. He's quoting that movie. He's quoting this movie. That's bad, because that's the big set piece. Anyway, we could talk about trucker movies forever. But this is how it is. This is why I love Watanabe, too, because he's a cinephile. Yeah. Like, everyone's stealing. You just don't know it because you just have to like watch everything. Right. You have to watch what they watch. And more on to that point. The reason I know I'm right is because there's a quote on the bathroom stall at one point in this, like when he's talking to Faye and he's like hungover, Spike that is. On the bathroom stall it says, written, and it's in English. It reads, "I wrote a letter to Heinlein once, asking him if I could use his ideas. I don't remember what song or what book now, but he wrote back to me. And he said, 'Oh God, you're the first person out of thousands who's stolen my ideas, who's written and asked.'" And it comes from a quote from a magazine called Heavy Metal Magazine.
Perfect.
It's just like, it's all like he's clearly just read all this stuff. And then obviously, as you mentioned, the Convoy stuff with Peck and Paw, and that stars Chris Christopherson, which is a lot of the CB radio stuff that I mentioned, like the idea of every trucker having their own lived in space. A lot of that feels very vibrant and world buildy because it's just Watanabe taking from something and exploding it into his world. And that's how you steal with class. That's the end of my little bit.
I love it.
So
I love it so much, Abe, that I think I'm ready to carry that weight.
So let's talk about themes and basic overall kind of implications to the series as a whole. This section is called You're Gonna Carry That Weight.
Okay. God, if you haven't seen this show, and you're like, what is that song? You know what I mean? Every time that comes on, I'm like, oh, buddy, just you wait.
Shit.
Just you.
Doggy, doggy, dog.
Just you wait.
We are the doggy, doggy, dog. Yeah, there's Live in Baghdad is in this one. The doggy dog one. The piano bar's in it again. Dun, 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 dun,
yeah, they love
that. Yep. So there's a lot of great songs in this. Obviously, Live in Baghdad is like the
that's
heavy metal
the raddest
theme
one
for the Queen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, since I just talked, did you want to talk about any themes in particular?
Well, this taps into something I definitely want to talk about in the next episode. But Spike is, I think, his great superpower is actually empathy. Even though he can't ever express it in a way that's comprehensible until, it's about time for the old episode to be dead. That's actually, I think, his greatest strength is that he's able to kind of stop for a minute and see into the situation a bit more clearly. And I think he's the only person who actually sees VT for who she is, right? And sees and think in some ways like, and this is another thing I want to talk about in the next episode. I think he finds some parallels with his life in her. I think a lot of the people that Spike...
A closed chapter, an end of a story, maybe life is over after that.
That's right. And I think, it's not an accident the people that Spike runs into and has some connection with. And even though they all sort of seem on the surface very different, I think she definitely is reverberant of some stuff we're going to learn about Spike in the future that I think is interesting. I just appreciate how dedicated the filmmakers here are to incorporating a wide swath of pop culture, and it still feels like it has a unique identity. Like, heavy metal is very hard to fit in aesthetically to anything. Like, heavy metal is the loudest choice that I can think of.
I mean, I'd say it's a good fit for truckers.
100%. But, like, into a larger work that isn't all based around truckers or,
truckers,
it's
right.
a really loud decision and hard to kind of blend. And yet somehow I think they successfully did blend it here into, their general sensibility. And I think that's pretty impressive. I don't have any. This is one of those like world building episodes where I'm like, did we learn anything about the world that was interesting? And I'm not sure that we did, but maybe you did.
It's definitely in theme. It's lower yield, I would say, because it's much like, which it's maybe a terrible example, but yet we're gonna have more of these kind of bottle type, not bottle episodes, but like self-contained small stories, and that's something we opened up with, like when we got for episode 1, where we get the red eye. And the pregnant woman who explodes in space and her belly expels all of the red eye. That is a little different. I mean, it's doing the same thing, but it's also, we have to, because it's the pilot, tell you a lot more about who Spike is, tell you a lot more about who the Bebop is and how it functions, because it's doing those introductions. We've kind of settled in the series now.
Yes.
So this is the first time that I feel like Watanabe and company can kind of sit down and go, this one has Spike-related stuff, but like ultimately, this is a VT's episode, right? It's all about VT.
Yeah, it's definitely her more than anyone else.
Yeah, it's living, breathing in her atmosphere, and I think that there's an aspect of that like, that's something that the show wants to do and will do a lot more prevalently in the future. But this is the first time it's really gotten to catch its breath and do that. That said, I do think that there is a very specific, like, what's the point of the episode for Spike? Let's look at those scenes with VT. Like, what does it say?
Oh, great.
And I think it all comes down to that final scene.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Obviously, with all the plant and playoff, Spike only takes a bill. And
That's actually
her history is her history.
I think the ending is probably the clearest confirmation that Spike is actually run by empathy that we've had in the series so far.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like, I mean, I know we'll have others, but like, they need the money, and he doesn't have to give it back. It's his money.
But all of the people that they've met so far, with the exception of, forgive me, I forget her name in the first episode.
The pregnant girlfriend?
Yeah, but he sees, like, with Wen and, in Sympathy for the Devil, and obviously Ballad, we're talking about Vicious here, like, all these people are deplorable people who choose, I control lives, and he, won't allow that. So he's usually busy, avenging someone.
That's true.
You don't get a ton of scenes. But you do get things like Annie. You get, like,
Annie.
We cut to, he has friends. He has people who love him and he loves them, and you can tell. And that means that there's a history there. And this is one of the things that I think makes Spike really unique. It definitely makes him more unique than Faye, even though they share a lot of these things, which is, when you look at VT's character, early up, she comes at him hard early. Not knowing he's a bounty hunter, she's like, bounty hunters are scum, right? And they think of people as mere dollars. Like, the very thing that I think that, even though he has the job, he does think about that. It's because he feels that he's putting scum in the line.
Right, of course. That's what every bounty hunter
thinks. He's taking
thinks.
aspects of himself, what he used to be, and he's containing it. This is retribution for him.
He's atoning. He's atoning for who he was.
Right, exactly. Yeah. This is a form of atonement. So she may have come to this opinion recently. We don't know. Probably has to deal with her death of her, husband.
Yeah, that's implied.
But it's revealed. Yeah, but it's revealed later that it used to be the opposite. She had no problem with bounty hunters. In fact, she loved them. She was a part of it, the culture. She knows a lot about it. And now she cut to, 10 years later or whatever, how long it's been. And she's like, there's no honor among thieves. And basically shows her that prejudice, right? Which is fantastic, because I think the reason that it's most, not for her, but for Spike, we know he's a dead man.
Yeah,
he presents that he himself is unchangeable and unsavable almost. Like, that's what he wants people to think. Yet here he is, caring about that,
Yeah, I wonder if in some way he actually is subverting the thing that made her feel this way about bounty hunters, i.e. perhaps her husband did something extraordinarily selfish and got himself killed, or, split them up. And
I think it was probably something like that. And because it seems to be zeroed in on the selfishness and the lack of empathy that bounty hunters have.
And Spike clearly decides, I'm gonna do the opposite of that. Why?
I'm not that.
Because,
And we have already seen other bounty hunters, a whole bar full of these bounty hunters are, they're not that. I think Spike and Jet and Faye a little bit, they're kind of unique.
That's interesting that you say that.
Are sympathetic.
Certainly Jet is unique. Jet feels
ex-cop.
Well, and I think he feels more, he has more of a moral impetus that's not as intuitive. It's more like rote rules and code. But Spike, I think, has a more intuitive sense of what's right and wrong, and acts accordingly. Like there's some casuistry to his morality. Faye is completely self-interested. Like, Faye is exactly what she hates about bounty hunters. And I'm not sure that we get anything to the contrary in this episode.
No, not at all.
Although there was a great opening shot on Faye. She's just fucking miserable in this children's restaurant with a sundae in front of her until she sees the guy she's gonna pick up. You know what I mean? Like the prey. And then she starts eating and she's like, oh, yum, 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 yum.
Yeah, I love that about her. She's like, she gets hungry when she's like, it's work now, and that says something about her.
It was fun.
I just think that, like, for all the things that we're learning about VT and the self-contained story, it's interesting. His sympathetic streak.
Yes.
It's something that Spike goes in and out of, like you said. If his superpower is adaptability or to be formless like water, he
I'm so glad you said
himself changing. But to me, the devotion to telling someone or pointing out that your prejudice exists is to say to that person, you are worth a second chapter. Your opinions now, where you are now, isn't the end of everything, nor was the last time that you felt it was the end of everything. That's what he's doing ad hoc. Like, he is, by saying and presenting, by the way, I'm going to be friendly to you and not like take the money. I'm going to show you something different, because he could easily take the money. She's already said she doesn't care, you know,
or need it.
And he's doing that. That means that he deep down actually believes in second tails, and that is unique. This is an update.
That is an update, and I think a place of tension for Spike, because he never...
It hasn't solidified for him yet.
I mean, ultimately, I think that's the question that he ends up having to answer at the end of the series, right? And I think when we get there, we'll have to revisit that question. Like, what did he really decide? You know?
Right. Yeah, he's definitely teetering.
Yeah.
For most of for almost all of it.
Yeah, I mean, even in this episode, he does a death wish thing. Like, every episode, he does something that should kill him. You know, like this one, it really looks like, fuck, you know, he's sunk out there. What is he going to do?
Yeah.
You know? There's something about Cowboy Bebop where even though the tricks are the same every time, they still work every time. Like, that's a kind of incredible thing about how this show is made. That, like, you know Spike's not going to die, and yet it was legitimately harrowing when he missed. You know, it was like, oh no.
Especially because you get the reaction of the other people's faces. Other people were hardened, not criminals necessarily, but hardened bounty hunters, hardened truckers.
Hardened truckers.
And they're like, holy shit, the balls on this guy.
Hardened Truckers, by the way, is our first album, Abe. When we make a White Stripes-esque band, call ourselves Hardened Truckers.
Yeah. It's also could be the name of our joint autobiography.
Ooh, have you ever heard of a joint autobiography? I love that.
I think we can be the first,
splitting chapters.
Splitting chapters up. Sometimes I'm just like, Abe, just chiming in here.
Abe, let me tell you about me when I was 4.
Yeah. You've talked a lot. Yeah.
We're just arguing for control of it. I love it.
For more things like that, jokes and whatnot, and if you enjoyed, I don't know, if you enjoy Bebop, you enjoy this series, please visit us at our home at patreon.com/smallbeans. I don't have anything else to tell.
You know?
Yeah, come to our house. Find out where we live.
Visit us.
Swat us.
Yeah. Swat us, please.
It'll be fun. Yeah. Just me and the cops, me getting handcuffed.
I feel like I want to know what the dude's deal with eels is. Like, is that guy a pedophile? Is that what that means?
Oh, you know.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's at a kid's restaurant. He's got a weird eel with a heart tail.
Oh, you know.
What are we supposed to take what are we supposed to know about this man?
Eel stuff.
Yeah.
It's clearly just eel stuff.